Fox speed, roll it.
Shake it. Grandma, shit. Baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, buffa. Buffa, oh, buffa. Yeah, deny, buffa. Buffa. Go, croco, yeah, no, me, yeah, just your ghetto. And Ramanda, and Tuntun, they die, yes, a moto. O'Brien, say, service, your get your Chale, no, be lie, shit, be ya, shit, be ya, Chale, no, be lie, shit, be ya, shit, be ya, shit. Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, buffa, oh, buffa, yeah, deny, buffa. Living the life on the street, nobody care what we do. Nobody care what we go through. Nobody care what we do. Your brain motivational speakers, won't try and cry no. Your parents, you know, be SLY. Yes, I'm here. Someone say I'm not Betty Coco. When you back break up it, Mulinki Mr. John. Yes, you are when you pay this hard, yeah. Chale, no be lie, shit, be ya, shit, be ya, shit, Laris hard, yeah. Chale, no be lie, shit, be ya, shit, be ya, shit. Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, buffa, oh, buffa, yeah, deny, buffa, Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, buffa, oh, buffa, yeah, deny, buffa,
Savage mix.
Fox speed, roll it.
Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, buffa, oh, buffa, yeah, deny, buffa, Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, buffa, oh, buffa, yeah, deny, buffa.
Savage mix.
Fox speed, roll it.
Living the life on the street, nobody care what we do. Nobody care what we go through. Nobody care what we do. Your brain motivational speakers, won't try and cry no. Your parents, you know, be SLY. Yes, I'm here. Someone say I'm not Betty Coco. When you back break up it, Mulinki Mr. John. Yes, you are when you pay this hard, yeah. Chale, no be lie, shit, be ya, shit, be ya, shit, Laris hard, yeah. Chale, no be lie, shit, be ya, shit, be ya, shit. Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby.
Chroma yeshe sikana loke bebia so bloke nanso eye deya ebefa Agoo, we welcome you once again to the Agoo show. Your mamunyina akwaba. Yafe. Yes. Today is an exclusive interview. A very big interview with one big Japanese producer who is an American. Wow, we are going to have fun today. So when you're on Facebook, I will urge you to share and like and bring all your comments. Whatever questions you have, you can also post them and I'm going to ask him.
This is Jaffrey Radio.
Share. Kindly share. And the ya ne hear me pa obaswa na wo share na ama nkrofo so ehu nti wo Japan so na opese o atia. Today's interview is for you, trust me, because you be niema so. Yes, we are going to talk about so many things. So if you are here in Japan and you want to be an actor, come on, today is yours. You can bring up all your questions today. Yes, and my name still remains Nanaya, but you can call me Maame Agoo, and I'm going to respond to you. Okay, so before we go to our guests, I want to remind you about the Jaffrey Radio launching, which will be happening on the 20th March. It's going to be on a Sunday at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And we are inviting everyone to be there. Yes, to make this radio official. Thank you so much. So just look at me, Maame Agoo. I'm looking so pretty here. My hair, yes, proudly made by Mama Efe. And my looks, yes, she made me look so beautiful. Mama Efe, thank you so much. And God bless you. Okay. Also, I want to give shout outs to DJ Chicks. Wherever you are, I want to tell you that you are really missed. And DJ Clemsy, you are welcome once again to Japan. Yes. And we've missed you so much. Yeah. And then before we had Nkomon Kitten by Akosia Bekipa and Ketuade. You did an amazing job. Yes. Okay, so without wasting my time, I want us to introduce our guest for today. So my producer, he's not here in the studio, but it's a VMix. So he's going to join us through VMix. Wow. Hello. You're welcome to Jaffrey Radio and on the Agoo show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so in this program, I have a special greeting for my guests. We say Agoo, and
Agoo.
You have to respond. Maame.
Maame is a response?
Yes, Maame.
Okay.
You see the way I responded? Maame.
Maame.
Yes, so we are going to do this. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah.
Agoo.
Maame.
Great. Wow, you did a good job. Okay.
Yeah.
So Agoo simply means knocking on your door. So
Yeah.
you responding or opening the door to me or welcoming me, you say Maame.
Maame.
Yes. So I'm knocking
You're
on
welcome.
the doors of the entrepreneurs. So when they receive me, that is when we talk about their business and promote their business as well. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So without wasting my time, I would like you to introduce yourself to my viewers.
Well, I'm American. I've been in Japan now, Tokyo, almost 22 years.
Wow.
And came originally, I worked as a journalist and a TV producer for the Associated Press News. But quickly, I changed over. I did some stuff for BET. Your viewers might know that. That's the Black Entertainment Network in the United States. And then I formed my own company. I started producing programs for several TV networks, American TV networks, Fox, NBC, Universal, A&E networks, several National Geographic, those type of TV stations.
Okay, great. Great. But I don't think we got your name again.
Dan Smith, Dan
Dan,
Smith,
Dan Smith. Dan
very
Smith.
easy name.
Okay. Yeah, very easy. Dan Smith. Okay. So, how long have you been doing this? Okay, before we get there, when did you come to Japan?
I came to Japan, to Tokyo, like I said, in 2000, right
2000.
at
So like
the economic
2000,
summit.
22 years.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was in Okinawa to cover the economic summit, and then I decided to Associated Press News wanted me to work for them, so they invited me to come to Tokyo.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, okay. So that was your main reason for coming here to
Yeah,
Japan. Okay.
but I had been to Japan before because I was in the U.S. military, so I was stationed in Okinawa a couple of times, so I was very familiar with Japan.
Okay. So what happened? Why did you switch from the military to being a producer?
Well, in the military, you get shot at, so that's one reason.
Wow.
and, and then the other reason is that my childhood dream was always to work into entertainment in some capacity, you know. So my father was a musician, which meant that he trained us to be musicians, and he wanted us to be the Jackson Five. And but I wasn't as talented as Michael, so I decided to go in a different direction. Yeah.
Okay, so you had siblings who went into that direction, right?
Yeah, yeah. They initially we did, but now most of them went into different career fields. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I think everybody is different, right? Okay. So, you were already here because of the military job. I wanted to ask you how your stay has been here in Japan as compared to the US.
Well, it's been, you know, I would say it's been fairly decent because you know, I'm the type of individual that no matter where I am, I tend to take control of my circumstances there because when I was in the U.S. In the military, you travel around to different places, to different countries. I've been in a lot of Asia, a lot of Europe, Latin America, and so I've been in different places of the world where I had to adjust. And so Japan was just another adjustment.
Okay. Okay, great. So, I want to dive a little bit into your family. So,
Hmm.
are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, do you live with your families here in
No,
Japan?
I'm here myself. My family originally when I was in the military, and they're all in the U.S. And then I separated from my wife, but you
Okay.
know we have very amicable relations, so we're still official. But my daughters grew up in Japan, but they now live in the United States.
Oh, okay.
One is in television, just like me, and the other is a retailer. She has a retail business.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. Now let's bounce into what you do. How long have you been producing here in Japan?
For about 18 years now.
Wow. So can you tell us some of the movies you have produced so far, if you
Well,
remember?
I produce TV programs mostly
Okay.
TV programs, and so programs by you know like E News. I guess people see that a lot. E News. I produce that, which most of my programs involve celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, and so the programs Backstage Pass, E News. I've done some documentaries. I've done some work on some Fox shows. Maybe you guys might know Empire,
Empire.
the Fox show Empire with Taraji P. Henson. So a little bit on that, and then mostly I would say 75% of my stuff is celebrity interviews. So Will Smith, Denzel Washington, Halle
Oh,
Berry, Beyonce, those type of people.
wow. Okay. So how was the feeling like when you first met a celebrity?
I was pretty much like everybody else because I'm a big fan of people, but the one that probably struck me the most was Will Smith. He came to Tokyo for the movie I Am Legend, and
Wow.
he actually took me to breakfast. And I was just so impressed because I had never met him. Well, I met him once before. I take that back. I interviewed him once before, but he took me to breakfast, and while we were walking down the hotel for breakfast, of course, people stopped and asked for interviews, and so people asked for my interview, and I told her I'm not famous. And Will Smith told me, he said, "Hey, you're with me, so so if you don't think you're famous, at least act like you're famous." So that was pretty funny, you know.
Wow, wow, wow. Great. That was a great experience back then. I think so. Yeah. Okay. So, you've been doing TV mostly, and someone may ask, in Japan, don't you think the language is a barrier that can stop you from acting, doing any TV shows?
Well, yeah, it's. I think so because most people here are encouraged to do the language. I'm in a little bit of a different situation because as a producer, I control my content. So I do programs in Japanese, but I also do program in English, and I've done programs in Korean language. So uh, the advice I give people is that if you want to be a Japanese talent, excuse me, then
Okay.
obviously, yes, you should learn the language here. But if you want to be an international talent, then probably, English is probably a better difference because there's more work.
Okay. Okay. So, let's say me here in Japan, I want
Mm,
to be an actor here in
yeah.
Japan. How do I go about it? Because I don't speak Japanese.
Well, I think the first thing you do is that you have to make your bio, make a bio, because even Japanese have translators. Almost anything can be translated on Google. So almost any language can be translated. So you should make your biography to say, A, who you are, what experience you had if necessary, and then what your desires are. What type of, some people like to do singing, some people like to appear in roles where a dramatic role, some people like to do comedy. So you should be very specific at what you would like to do. And then producers generally take that because there's a lot of programs, even in Japan, that calls for people to speak other languages.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Okay. So, my viewers out there listening, you heard him.
Hmm.
I want to read some few comments before
Yeah.
we move on. So, Ebenezer Osea says, I'm watching. Thank you so much for watching. Please share. Okay. And Mr. Yahaya also says, Mr. Smith, you are awesome. That goes to you.
Mm.
And he also said, indeed, it was funny. I think when you talked about Will Smith. Yes. So
Mm.
he said, indeed, it was funny. Okay. Now back to D. Smith. Is it okay I call you that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I saw your picture for our banner with your kimono, and I really loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really, really loved it. Great. Okay, so can you tell us more about producing
The
or
kimono.
what you really do here in Japan?
Well, I work with different various partners, and the kimono scenes, that there's been a couple of campaigns that I did with kimonos, and the kimonos are generally provided by Jane Yamano of Yamano Gakuen, and I do it because I believe that people here, especially foreigners here, we should also help spread the culture of Japan, just as we ask Japan to accept our culture. So when I have an opportunity to do that, especially in a broad form, like a TV program or a magazine feature, I will often wear a kimono.
Okay. Okay. All right. So someone just asked, topic please. We just joined. Okay, so we are having an interview with Daniel Smith, a TV producer. So we're talking to him about his job here in Japan and how people can also learn from him. Okay. So, Mr. Smith, wasn't it difficult, or let's say, did you have any? In everything, we have pros and cons, right?
Yeah. Mm.
Were there some time in your journey that you thought it was very hard for you?
Yeah, when I first came here, I mean, I can't tell you how many doors were shut to me, simply because I was a foreigner. Sometimes I felt it's because I was a black foreigner.
This is Jaffrey
And
Radio.
the thing that I did, like I said, my family I grew up in, we sort of faced a lot of barriers. We had one of the first black-owned business stores in America. And even in America, we faced all kind of discrimination when we opened our black
Yeah.
bookstore because people just wasn't used to black enterprise. They wasn't used to it, and they didn't accept it. Well, in Japan, uh, for a long time, I think they kind of ignored the fact that they were a multicultural society. And so that kind of, I had that kind of hurdle. But what I took with that hurdle is I took a different approach to that hurdle. I created a program called Black Life in Japan,
Okay.
and and this was back in like 2004 or 2005, and I featured mostly some Black Americans, but it's mostly Africans, friends of mine that I knew here. And I went out to their businesses and we talked about the businesses. I showed it on TV, and I showed it in America, and it it was that program that actually started getting the attention of Hollywood stars who would come here and they would say, "Hey, I don't know who the guy is, but he puts out this program from Japan called Black Life in America. I mean, in Japan, and we'd like to meet him." So that actually started opening the door because once the Japanese saw that, they felt, "Oh wow, this guy is here. Maybe we should talk to him." But initially, they actually closed a lot of doors to me.
Okay. Wow. That might be so hard. So, how did you overcome all these things?
Well, persistence. You have to believe in what you're doing, and then
Okay.
second, you have to really seriously assess the situation. There's many of the people I meet here, many of the foreigners I meet, including yourself and Sam and some of the other people that's involved with you. These are people who had to, go against a lot of odds just to make it. You have a lot of odds just to make your show, but you do it. And when you do it, you inspire other people to do it. So I
Yeah.
think when we fight it and we don't let it get us down, it inspires others, but it also influences people. Influences some of those doubters out there who says, "I don't know if I'm ready for this."
Okay. Wow. Consistency is the key. It's really important. Yeah. If you really know what you want, you really know what you're in for. I think consistency is the key. So, how do we get to see some of the TVs you've produced so far?
Well, some of they're on various networks. I have stuff that was on Fox Network. I have
Fox
stuff
Tech.
that's on Amazon Prime, Hulu. It just depends because I put out programs seasonally. So right now, I think maybe the only one I have up in Japan on Amazon right now is a program called Defending Japan, which is a 1 hour program that talks about the military aspects and things like that. I have a not a new program, but another season of Backstage Pass, which start in March, and that'll be on Rakuten TV, and probably on Amazon, a couple other platforms too. So for people in Japan, and then I just launched a YouTube site, which is the
Okay.
first time I've never used YouTube, but I'm putting up a YouTube page called Backstage Pass Japan, which will feature some of the Japanese stars and Hollywood people that we interview.
Well, we can't wait to see that.
That's up now, so you can actually go to YouTube and just click in Backstage Pass Japan, and you can see some of those programs now.
Okay, Backstage Pass. Okay,
Japan, yeah, Backstage Pass
Backstage
Japan,
Pass Japan. So, my
yeah.
producer, if you heard that, can you please put it on the screen for my viewers to see
And
and check it
you
out?
were talking about films earlier, so I'm getting my first couple of Hollywood films, the film
Okay,
projects that I've kind of agreed to do. I unfortunately, because of NDAs and stuff and negotiations, there's not a lot I can say about it now, other than yeah, I am getting my first shot, which I'm pretty excited about because, that's my final goal was to do Hollywood films, and so there's two projects that I'm associated with. One I can talk about a little bit. Involved It's pretty current. It involves the COVID pandemic, and it's called Spreader, and it's pretty interesting story. But we
wow.
haven't attached any actors to it yet. I have actors in mind that I wrote the parts for, but uh, it's to the point that we can't diverge on it yet because we're still in negotiation with the studio, and a major studio has said they want to do it. So I'm pretty happy about that.
And I'll be happy if I'm featured in that.
Well, one thing that I do want to tell people, because one of the things I stress when people approach me, when studios came to approach me about making films, because I've been approached maybe the last 4 years, because I'm also a writer. I write scripts, and I told them that I'm interested in doing it, but my idea is that I want to use a lot of local talent, because there's a lot of talented people here that all they need is a forum. They just need a platform so people can see them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and I think I'm in a advantageous position because, like I said, people are coming to me asking me to do a film rather than me having to go to there and say knock on their door and say, "Oh, please, can you let me do the
Can
film?" So
you?
it gives me a little bit more clarity. It gives me a little bit more decision making, and people who know me know that I always stress local talent. All my TV shows feature local talent, and most of them feature people who didn't have experience. But I tell people nobody knows you don't have experience unless you tell them.
Wow, that's wonderful. Wow, you're a great man. Great. Wow. I really love that. So, talking about the COVID-19, how has it affected you? Negatively or?
Well, no, well, of course, it affect the whole climate here negatively.
Yeah.
But in my business, it's a little bit different because what it allowed me to do is it gave me time. There were many projects like movie projects and stuff that I had put off, but since the business has slowed down, it gave me time to develop some new programs. It gave me time to make some deeper context. I'm fortunate. 2 years ago, I won an award in Hollywood for one of my documentaries, and so that opened a lot of doors for me because it was the first time I actually went to Hollywood and I was they had a big screening. They had red carpet. It was right there in Hollywood Boulevard. So it was even for somebody like me, it was a pretty big exciting thing. So, but it opened the doors. It gave me a lot more context, and it gave me a lot more confidence to move into movies.
Wow. Wow. It's really affected some people negatively or very bad. Like it shut
Yeah.
down their business totally. But on the other hand, it also helped some people one way or the other. Yes, to build what they love to do more, like have time for themselves to research, to learn, to read, and also come out great. And I think yours is a positive one.
Well,
I'm
the
glad
other
to
thing
hear
that
that.
it did is that, and I think maybe you can attest to this, that it created a new vacuum. It created a vacuum for information. So
Yeah.
streaming became very popular. In fact, probably more popular than TV now. So it has allowed like this type of show to prosper now. You can prosper and it can become a business in that viewers now will tune into you, where before they were pretty regimented. They either watch TV or they watch movies, and that was it. But now the internet has opened a whole new sphere, and that's directly because of the coronavirus pandemic. So as horrible as it was in that area, it opened a new and exciting area for people, because the demand now for content, original content such as your program, is really tremendous.
I think I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it created the bad side is the business, the economic, but on the good side, it created more interest in the internet and more interest in streaming programs and
Exactly.
programs like your program. There's a lot more interest now in those programs. So it's a vehicle for you, a window for you to talk to the rest of the world now.
I think it has delayed, but my producers, can you please check and then do something about it? Uh, his speech delays. Yeah. So please check and then let's do something about it. Okay, so I think it's the network, right? No, it's okay. It's fine. Yeah, because he's speaking and I can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So I'll repeat what I said, but my point was that you talked about the downside of coronavirus,
Yeah.
and again, the economic downside was significant, but
Okay.
there was one area where I think it created a whole new opportunity, and that's through streaming, because streaming and content and shows like your TV show now really, I think, can prosper for the fact that there are so many hundreds of thousands or more people tuning into the internet and social media now to get their information.
Okay. All right. So we are here in Japan. You came down from the US to Japan to start this business. Now
Mm.
there's someone in Japan who wants to go into the producing business. How do we start?
It's a couple of ways. It depends on your age. The easiest way is to become an intern, because almost every production company they use interns. Almost everybody that works for me, in fact, I would say it's about 90%, or people that worked for me as interns, and then I hired them as regular staff. And so that's always the best way. Of course, you can go to school and you can go to that. That's another way to do it. Uh, and then through social media now, you can create your own avenue. There are so many social influencers now who are
This is
bigger than
Jaffrey Radio.
TV stars, uh, simply because they stuck to it. They developed their shows. Their shows attracted a large following, and then sponsors found them and funded their shows.
Okay. All right. So we can use this media to also start something, and then someone is going to find you
Yeah,
and
because
sponsor.
there's companies that look for talent now every day on this
Yeah.
on the social media.
Okay, that's great. So I think it's one of the greatest way to use. Okay.
Mm.
So I want to read some two comments. Mr.
Okay.
Yahaya says, believe in what you do and be persistent. Many thanks, Mr. Smith. And then he also says, backstage bunch. Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Yahaya. Thank you for always tuning in to Jaffrey Radio and always passing your comments. Thank you so much. You can also
This is
bring
Jaffrey
up any
Radio.
questions you want for Mr. Smith. Anything you would like to know, he's ready to answer all your questions. Anything you want to know, please write them in the comment section. Whilst you're on it, you keep sharing. It's really important to me. Okay. So, Mr. Smith, what are some of the techniques or technical know-how we should have when trying to become someone like you?
Well, I think I'll give you a little bit about my story. Like I said,
Okay.
I was a journalist before, but I always wanted to go into TV, and a job came open, and they wanted a person who had TV experience. I had no TV experience,
Okay.
but I wanted to work in TV, so I literally went into the job. I interviewed for it, and one of the people, liked my enthusiasm because there's no substitute for what you can go into and get people fired up about something. But the second guy was a technical guy, and he kind of looked through my guys, and just the way I was speaking, he kind of figured I didn't know so much technically about it. But what I did do, I literally, I'll be honest with you, I went back to the internet and studied for like 2 weeks, and I came back and I impressed them with my technical knowledge, but it was all from the internet. So I'm probably not a good example of what you would do technically. But for example, my brother's a TV producer, and he did it the traditional way. He went to school, he learned all his craft, and so he did it. But I guess my point is that it depends on how hard you really want to do something. You'll figure out a way to learn how to do it.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so he's giving us so many tips that we can also use. So there is a question by Mr. Yaha to you. It says, ask him what it is like working with Japanese media. How is it like?
I would say it's a work in progress because for a long time I kind of avoided the Japanese media because, like I said, the product that I produce, I sell directly to Japanese media, but I also sell to the U.S. media, Europe media. I've sold it to Africa media, and so it gives me a little bit of leverage. So they're not in a position to dictate to me like, oh, well, if we don't help you, you're not gonna survive. So eventually, they did it. But I tell you what helped me the most with Japanese media here was back in 2000. I think it was 7. Michael Jackson came here, and it was his last trip ever that he made overseas, and he was very particular about who he wanted to work with, and he had heard about me again through the Black Life in Japan program, and so he requested that I be his camera guy, only me. He said, I don't want anybody else, you and your crew. And so what happened was, of course, it's Michael Jackson. He's the king of pop, the biggest star in the world. All the Japanese stations obviously wanted that footage. And so I talked with Michael and I said, hey, here's the deal. I'll work with you for free in exchange for you allow me to take the footage that I shoot and sell it to the Japanese stations because they will establish me with the Japanese stations. And so he agreed to that, and that literally put me on the map with the Japanese stations in like 1 week. In 1 week, I went from nobody knew who I was to everybody knew who I was.
Wow. Wow. Just a day. This is
It took a couple of days, and it just literally turned everything around.
yeah. This is amazing. Okay. How well do you speak Japanese?
Not so good. Not so well.
Okay, so back then, during Michael Jackson's time, how did you do it? Penetrating into the Japanese media.
Well, it's Michael Jackson. You know, the thing is that they couldn't get the only way they can get the footage of him was through me. So they had to deal with me. And some of the TV stations actually ran programs describing who I was because I was so unknown at the time that the Japanese TV stations, which was a great benefit to myself, but they actually did stories on who is this Dan Smith guy and how did he get to film Michael Jackson, the biggest star in the world. You know, why was he selected over hundreds and hundreds of people, including Japanese? You know, so again, sometimes a lot of things are timing because there was a promoter who I was working with, a guy named Broderick Morris, who was a promoter here, and he was the guy who actually brought Michael Jackson to Japan. So he actually initiated the dialogue, and but the reality is that they couldn't get footage of Michael Jackson unless they bought it from my company. So that's basically how I got introduced to the Japanese fans in a big way. And it also
Okay.
attracted me, I got to be honest, it attracted me to Fox and other people who came to hire me afterwards because, this footage didn't just show in Japan, it showed all over the world. It was literally, for that whole week, my footage was being shown throughout the whole world.
Yeah. Okay, so someone said when you're in Japan, you want to be an actor, a producer, especially when you're a foreigner. You need to, first of all, go to a Japanese school, learn the Japanese before you can get into the entertainment industry here in Japan. Can you tell us something about this?
I think that's good advice because, like I said, I'm probably an exception because I know a couple of people like me who don't speak a lot of Japanese who I am, but like I said, my position is a little bit different. But if I wanted to be a
Yeah.
talent, I would think that I would have to speak Japanese. I have appeared on some Japanese TV programs, and I've spoken a little Japanese, just basic Japanese, but most of the time I require them to provide a translator because I have a couple opinions. One is that for them to take me seriously as a producer, I couldn't appear to be a talent, because a
Okay.
talent they send Japan puts you in very concrete boxes, right? So if you're a talent, you're pretty much a talent for the rest of your time in Japan. If you're a producer, you're a producer for the rest of the time. So I wanted to be a producer, and that didn't require as much communicative skill as a talent. But if you want to be on talent or TV shows or even actors in Japanese TV shows, I think it's a lot better if you learn the language.
Okay. All right. So there is a question here. Before we go to the questions, Kilo Jet says, great program. Thank you so much, Kilo, for watching. Kindly share. Okay, I've seen that you shared. Thank you so much. Mr. Yaha also brought a question. He says that have the Japanese criticized your content before? If they have, how did you take
Criticize,
it? Yeah.
criticize. Um, you know what? I have to be honest. I haven't got so much criticism because I work very hard to make sure my programs are held to a very high standard.
Okay.
Most of the producers that I talk to, my programs are better than their programs in
Okay.
terms of the quality. So it's I may have had one and two when I was at Fox. I remember there was a couple of producers who came to the organization about the same time I came, and they had worked with TV stations, but they initially criticized me because I didn't speak Japanese. But the problem was during our tenure, I had produced about you know 12 or 13 programs. They didn't produce any. They were good at holding meetings and talking in Japanese, but they wasn't actually good at producing programs. So, when you compare it to that, it's pretty easy to stand out. So um, if I got criticism, I didn't really notice it that much because I I made sure that when I put a product out, that it could hold its weather in Japan or Hollywood.
Okay.
That was the standard that I held my programs to.
Okay. All right. That's great. That's great. Okay, so there's another question. What are the things or some of the things you consider before producing a quality movie or a film?
I'm a big fan of TV and movies and music. So my first test is always it doesn't make is it interesting to me, because I think sometimes people ego gets in the way. They have an ego and they says, oh well, I know this, I know that. I never assume anything, and I take ideas from all kind of people. I'm very good with getting in conversation with somebody. I'll talk to them, and then I tell them, that's a great idea. Have you ever thought about doing a program with that? A lot of my programs are created by people I talk to, who, when I talk to them, they'll say, oh, well, I always wanted to do a TV program about that. And I say, well, let's do it. And they says, you mean just like that? I say, yeah, let's, if we can make it happen, let's do it. So, um, I tend to think that people kind of underrate themselves. A lot of people have a lot of good ideas. A lot of programs are very solid, but I just say think bigger. Sometimes don't
Okay.
accept just the smaller one.
Okay. Wow. Think bigger. Don't accept the smaller ones. Okay. And I have another question here. How can someone become a producer here in Japan?
Well, like I said, it's a couple of ways. It's much
Yeah.
easier now to self-produce, which is becoming very popular. Where if you have resources, you have your own money, you have your own business, you can do that, or you can do crowdfunding. That's a good one to get started. Or you can pitch your ideas. One thing which we haven't talked about today is pitches. A lot of producers will listen to a pitch if you know them. If you know them, or somebody who knows a producer, you can write, and it's pretty easy to find the format on the internet. But pitches are what I say, maybe 45% of programs are created from a person who pitched the idea. And then when you pitch the idea, they accept the idea. During your negotiations, usually you can negotiate to say, hey, I'd like to come aboard this project as a producer. If you don't have producer experience, as an associate producer, or as a line manager, or as a manager. The thing is to get your foot into the door at whatever level, and then move yourself up.
Okay. All right. So, should in case someone sees this interview and wants to be an actor, can the person contact you?
Yeah, people contact me on Facebook all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because what I'll do, I'll give them information. I usually take their bio, their pictures, and I'll ask them if they have an agency, things like that. And then, like I said, when I have projects that come up that kind of fit that person's mode, I just call them.
Okay.
I
So,
don't
can you
really
tell
do
us
agency.
something about the AGC?
No, I don't have an agency. I said usually people have in agencies contact me.
Agency. Okay. 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 All right. Okay. So, there is another question. Do you have data to program as to the group of people who follow your program?
Yeah, different programs have different demographics. So, for example, my program on History Channel or Amazon, Defending Japan, that's for an older audience. I would say, from the 30s to 70. My e-news program, or like my Mariah Carey special, obviously that's designed for people that's younger or Mariah Carey fans. So I target a program usually targets a certain demographics. And normally the TV network will come to me and say, I want to produce a program for this demographics. Or in my case now, I don't actually, I produce my own program. So I will come up with a program and an idea, and I will design it for a certain demographics.
Okay. Okay. I think Mr. Ya he just answered your last question. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And Mr.
This
Smith,
is Jaffrey Radio.
your Facebook, your social media handles, like how do we contact you on Facebook? Okay.
Facebook, I have a couple of sites. I have one, probably the easiest is the Dan Smith. I think it's just the Dan Smith page. I had to look it up. But I think that's easy. And like I said, my Facebook site is open to public, so I get messages every day from people. You know,
Do you reply to
with this-
messages?
I always reply, even if
Okay.
I can't help it. I always reply. So that is good. My Instagram handle, I think, is Samurai_Dan_Smith, and I also answer those inquiries. So
Okay.
yeah, usually when somebody sends me a message, I mean, if they take the time to write a message, I try to take the time to answer it.
Okay. That's great because most celebrities, when they send them messages, they don't respond. So it's
Yeah,
good
well,
you're doing this.
it's because, for example, I just had a birthday, I think last week, and I got maybe like, something like 1,200 people to respond. So what I'll do, like this weekend, I'll spend that whole weekend responding. But I talked about Michael Jackson earlier, right?
Yeah.
And I was with Michael Jackson, and he stayed at the Four Seasons Hotel in Tokyo, and there was thousands of fans who would come there at the hotel because he was here for like 8 days, and they would be in the lobby. They would just sit in the lobby, and so his staff would go and pick up messages and stuff that people would send him, and he would spend 2 to 3 hours at night signing the autographs. I saw him personally do it and answering every single one. And I asked him, I says, man, do you do this? He said, I do this for as many fans as possible because he said, if they take the time to do it, I want to take the time to answer it. And then Will Smith also told me he does that. Tom Cruise does it. So, I try to tell people who are not just famous, but have some type of notoriety, a lot of these people made you, so, you can't respond all the time, but social media makes it possible that you can respond. If you can't respond individually, you can respond generally to thank them, and you should do it. You should really do it because the people are taking the time. And I see how you're doing it with your radio show. Now you're doing it on your show. When your callers come in, you acknowledge them. That's a good thing to do. They'll stick with
Thank
you,
you.
and they'll tell other people about you and say, hey, she's very good at doing that. So. Yeah, I always tell people, and I got the advice from two of the biggest stars ever, Michael Jackson and Will Smith, and they both said the same thing. Said, hey, look, if they think you're, significant enough to do something, at least try to acknowledge them. And if you can't do it individually, do it publicly, which you can do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So what advice will you give to let's say a foreigner, I don't want to say an African, a foreigner here in Japan who wants to be an entrepreneur in general?
Well, again, I think what's beginning to open up a bit in Japan is still a very close society to foreign business. I'm talking about individual entrepreneurs. So, you have to come up with a good idea, which works anywhere, not just Japan, but specifically here in Tokyo. B, don't be afraid to network. I think networking here is pretty strong, and it's pretty effective here because there's a very strong loyal audience that people can drive to you. So I think that's important, and I think and I tell people never be afraid of your culture. Don't what I loved about one of the things I loved about Japan when I first got here, most of the people who befriended me was from Africa, and it just befriended me as a foreigner. It wasn't I was an American or this, and then other cultures did the same thing. So I think there's a unique atmosphere in Tokyo where you have a little bit of that network. So expand that network. Don't be afraid to tap into that network. And then on the other end of it, when you can, spread the network.
Okay. Okay. That's great. Okay. So I have like two more questions. Our time is up, but I think we'll make it fast so
Okay.
that yeah, we end today's show. Okay, so Mr. Yahaya, he really wants to know more about you and the producing job. So he says, if you are to advise upcoming producer in Japan,
Hmm.
what area would you advise him or her to focus?
Um, Probably the one with the most access would be news, because
News.
that's obviously the biggest one, and that's the one that probably is more open to foreign influence, especially with the various TV stations like NHK or TVSI. So I would say news would be it. And then second, I would think there are a lot of event organizers, people who organize events, who
Okay.
you might start with them because they tend to have access to media outlets, you know. And again, like I said, don't be afraid to go up to people. When I came here, I actually went out, bought me a suit, hired a translator, and I went into all the TV stations. I mean, literally, I got thrown out of most of them, but I made appointments with them and said, "Hey, I'm interested in producing. Do you have a job for me? If you don't have a job for me, would you be interested in something I produce?" I wasn't afraid to do that.
Mm, that's great.
And you said you had another question?
Yeah, one more question. What are your dreams forward?
Well, most of them I realize, but like I said, my final set of dreams is I'm making a transition now from TV to film, and again, what I want to do, I want to produce a couple of films, but I want to produce one or two films here featuring maybe 70% of local talent, because I like I said, I believe I'm in a unique position, a unique place here in Tokyo, that I come across so many talented people. I don't know what attracted them here, but they're here, and I would like to be at least one of the people who can create some kind of forum to showcase these people to the rest of the world.
Okay, that's great. That's a wonderful dream. Okay. Okay, so Mr. Aya is thanking you for answering all his questions. He says networking very important too by Mr. Smith. Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Okay. Okay, so my CEO just showed me something and I want to read to you that this is
All right.
from Pop. He says,
Okay.
Steve Hennings told me you are a great man.
That's coming from a good guy, but Pop is a great man. You guys, I'm his groupie. Pop is, I've seen him on TV, and he's a guy. I wish I was as smooth as him on TV, but yeah.
He heard that.
Yeah, and Stephen Haynes is doing some great stuff. He just won a big award for a documentary that he produced, and like I said, there's a lot of very talented people here in Tokyo. Daryl, Bay McNeil, a writer for the Japan Times. There's so many talented people. Don't be afraid to reach out to them, because there's a lot of people that I deal with. You know, Kingsley Kobayashi is another guy who does a lot of stuff with me. So there's a lot of great talented people out there.
Okay, great. Do you know Michael Coleman?
Yeah, yeah, very talented guy, very talented,
Wow,
good friend.
I see. Okay, what's your favorite Japanese word
It would have to
and
be
why?
something easy. It would have to be something easy because I struggle with Japanese so often. I would say I like the word. What's this? There's a word bequista. I like that word. I don't know why,
I
but I
love
just
it
like that word.
too.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
favorite
yeah,
Japanese
yeah,
word.
yeah.
Why do
I
you love
just
it?
it just because it seems to just sum it all up with one just word, just where in English you'd have to say, wow, you got to add two or three words to it, but in Japan that just seems to I just like it.
Okay, all
And the
right.
one thing I do like about certain Japanese words is that they have multi purposes. So yeah.
Okay.
But I do want to say this. I really enjoy your show. You know, you do a great job at the show, and you
Thank you
guys,
so much.
thank you for having me. Thank you for being a guest. I'm honored to be on your show, and I would encourage people to subscribe to the
Thank
show and
you.
listen often. So you know, you're a voice for a
Okay.
lot of people out there. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. But do you know what's happening on the 20th March?
Yeah, you were saying that you're having a very special launch, right?
Yes, you got it. So I'm inviting you.
I
This
watch.
is
I watch.
personal.
Yeah. I hope to be there.
You should be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'll be expecting you.
I'll be there.
Okay, thank you so much.
And you know
So-
where to call me. So you can track me down.
Okay, sure. I'll do just that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So we
Thank
bring
you.
our show to an end. Thank you so much. Because I know
Thank
you're
you.
so busy, but you really made time for us today.
Okay.
God bless you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we say bye-bye.
Bye bye.
No be lie, be at your heart, yeah. Be at your heart, yeah. Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it, baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, befa, oh, befa. Yeah, deny, befa. Grandma, shit, baby, I shit. See, can I lock it? Baby, I block it. So, yeah, my baby, mo, yeah, deny, befa, oh, befa. Yeah, deny, befa.
Savage mix.
Regarder Jaffrey Radio. Olá, meu nome é Renato, venho do Brasil. Você está assistindo Jaffrey Radio.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Namiko et vous regardez Jaffrey Radio. Konnichiwa, Namiko です。皆さんは Jaffrey Radio を聞いています。皆さんは Jaffrey Radio 見てるよ。
Share Jaffrey Radio, our YouTube and Facebook Live. Keep watching.
My name is Rod, and I'm here in Japan. We're pushing it, we're black, and we're doing our thing. You're watching Jaffrey Radio.